They say Sintra is the most beautiful town in Portugal, a place of fairy tale castles, misty green hills, and ancient stone streets that twist and turn as if they're trying to keep a secret. Everyone tells you about the colorful Pena Palace or the mystical Cana da Regalera, but what they don't tell you, what they can't tell you, is what happens after the sun sets and the last tourist bus leaves. Because when the clock strikes 12, Sintra stops being beautiful, it stops being a fairy tale, and it starts to remember. And when it remembers, you'll wish you were anywhere else. I came to Sintra alone. It was supposed to be a final, quiet stop on my solo trip through Portugal, a few days of peace before flying home. I found a small, cheap Airbnb on the edge of town, tucked away on a quiet road that wound up towards the ancient Castelo dos Moros. It was almost too cheap to be true, but I was on a budget, and the pictures looked cozy enough. After I booked, the host sent me a single odd message. It didn't say, "Welcome," or "Here's the Wi-Fi password." It just said, "Do not follow the bells at night." I remember laughing it off. Old European towns are full of dramatic local legends and silly warnings for tourists. It felt quaint, charming even. A little bit of local color. I wish I hadn't laughed. I wish I had deleted the app, canceled my flight, and run as far from that town as I could. That first night, the famous Sintra fog rolled in, thick and fast. It swallowed the streetlights, the houses, everything. By 11:58, the world outside my window had disappeared into a silent, white void. There were no cars, no distant voices from the town square, not even the chirping of insects. The silence was absolute heavy. It felt like the world was holding its breath, and then, dong, a single, deep toll of a bell. It was an ancient, resonant sound, heavy with age and sorrow, and it wasn't coming from any of the churches in town. The sound came from the forest, from the dark, tangled woods behind the castle walls. It was a sound that didn't belong. I pulled out my phone, partly out of habit, partly for comfort. No signal, no Wi-Fi. The little bars at the top of the screen were empty. The only thing that worked was the clock, its numbers changing with agonizing slowness. 11:59. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. I stared at the screen, watching the seconds tick by. And the moment the numbers flipped to 12 o'clock, midnight, the fog moved. It didn't drift or swirl with the wind. It parted. It cleaved open, creating a clear, straight path, as if something enormous and invisible was walking right through it. And then the bell rang again. Dong. This time it was closer. Much closer. My heart started hammering against my ribs. I scrambled to the door, fumbling with the deadbolt and the chain, making sure everything was locked. I was safe inside, I had to be. But the bell kept ringing. Dong. Each toll was closer than the last. A slow, predatory approach. Dong. And then I heard it. A sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. Footsteps. Outside my window, on the soft dirt path. They were slow, deliberate. The sound of bare feet, dragging, scuffing through the earth. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to control my breathing, whispering to myself, "It's just late-night tourists. They're lost. It's just old churches. The sound is echoing." But then a voice answered me. A dry, rustling whisper right on the other side of my door. "You heard us." The doorknob began to turn, slowly, silently, once, then back. Then it turned again, more forcefully this time. I backed away from the door, my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. The metal creaked under the pressure, and then silence. The turning stopped. The footsteps were gone. I waited, frozen in the middle of the room, for what felt like an eternity. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 20, nothing, just the oppressive silence of the fog. When I finally gathered the courage to peek through the curtains, the street was clear. The fog was gone, as if it had never been there. But carved into the damp earth outside my window were dozens of footprints. Dozens and dozens of them, all facing my house. All pointing directly at my door, and not a single one leading away. Sleep was impossible after that. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the clock, waiting for the sun to rise. The night stretched on, each minute a small eternity. At 17 minutes past 3 in the morning, the bells rang again. But this time, the sound was different. It wasn't loud or menacing. It was soft, distant, almost melodic. It wasn't a warning anymore. It was an invitation. A siren's call whispering from the woods, and a strange, horrifying thing happened. I didn't want to go. My mind was screaming, yelling at me to stay put, to hide until morning, but my body wasn't listening. My feet moved on their own, carrying me towards the door. My hands, trembling but resolute, unlatched the chain, turned the deadbolt, and opened the door to the night. I stepped outside, into the forest. The path behind the castle shouldn't have been there. I'd walked around the area during the day. It was just a dense thicket of trees and overgrown brush. But now, a set of worn stone steps appeared before me, leading down into the earth. The air grew cold and damp. As I descended, old iron sconces on the stone walls flickered to life, their small flames casting long dancing shadows. The steps opened into a vast cavernous space. It was a ruined chapel, hidden deep beneath the forest floor. And inside there were people, dozens of them. They were all on their knees, facing a massive, ancient bronze bell that hung silently in the center of the chamber. I recognized some of them as tourists I'd seen earlier in town. A young couple with backpacks. A man still wearing his headphones. Their faces were slack, their bodies still. All of them staring, unblinking, at the bell. Their mouths were slightly open, as if in a silent gasp. But their chests didn't rise or fall. They weren't breathing. The air was dead. Then the bell rang. Dong. Its vibration shook the very stone beneath my feet. And with that single deafening toll, every head in the chapel turned toward me, in perfect, unnatural unison, their eyes. Their eyes were black, not just dark irises. They were completely black, empty, bottomless pits. One of them, a woman in the front row, smiled. A slow, knowing smile that didn't reach her empty eyes. Her voice was like dry leaves skittering across pavement as she said, "You're late." The bell rang again. And in that concussive wave of sound, a memory slammed into me, a memory that wasn't mine, or maybe it was. I had been here before. This wasn't my first trip to Sintra. I had come years ago, another solo trip, another cheap rental on the edge of the woods. I had heard the bells at midnight. I had followed them down the stone steps. I had walked into this chapel, and I had never truly left. I thought I had escaped, that I had gone home. But it was just a story my mind told itself. Every time I try to leave, every time I think I'm free, the fog rolls in, the bell rings, and Sintra brings me back. The bell doesn't call to strangers. It only calls to the ones who already belong to it. The ones who are already part of its silent congregation. Morning came, bright and indifferent. The police would later find my Airbnb empty, the door left wide open, the bed untouched. My phone was sitting on the nightstand, its screen dark, but it was still recording audio. And if you listen closely, right at the moment the clock strikes midnight each night, you can hear the faint, distant toll of bells in the background. And then you can hear my voice, a faint whisper, layered over the sound. Don't follow them. So if you ever find yourself in Sintra, and you hear bells ringing in the forest after midnight, they're not ringing for the dead. They're ringing for you. Thanks for listening.